Welcome to the Jboy Show, hosted by Jake Crain, the fastest growing sports show in the nation.
I'm Coach Hugh Freeze.
This is Super Bowl champion Brandon Graham.
Hey, this is DJ Shockley, and you're watching.
And thanks for watching the Jboy Show.
Hello, everybody. Thanks for hopping in again. Got another edition of the Jboy Show. Really excited to get to a guy we've all heard of, seen, commentate. Grew up listening to Brad Nessler, CBS Sports SEC play-by-play broadcaster for college football and college basketball. Excited to get him in here and talk some SEC football going into the 2021 season, including the new hires, Brian Harsin and the like. But first, got to give a shout out to betonline.ag. Head over there today. The online casino is always open. The NBA playoffs are winding down. Still time to make some great team prop bets, player prop bets, game prop bets, however you get down. I've been flirting with the over-unders, 2.5 threes for Devin Booker and Trae Young. It's been really interesting. Going to continue to be interesting to follow that. We also have Major League Baseball, soccer, anything, anyway. They're going to have the bet. You need to make sure you head over there now because they've got a 50% sign-up bonus. The sign-up bonuses are always awesome, but at betonline.ag, they just go the extra mile. So head over there today, sign up, get that sign-up bonus, and start playing, start taking chances on your favorite game if that's something that you want to do and that you're able to do. So head over to betonline.ag today. My monologue today is kind of twofold, two things, both dealing in the special teams realm and gameplay, game management, game situation, whatever you want to call it. And the first thing is something that drives me absolutely crazy, especially as a former special teams coordinator. And the second one is one that is more circumstantial, and I'm going to get to that in a second. And I've kind of talked about this a little bit on social media. The first one is, if you have a kickoff guy and your team is kicking off that can kick a touchback every time, don't try and coffin corner kick. Don't sky kick. Kick the touchback every time. In the history of the world, going all the way back through the dinosaurs, there has never been a touchdown return on a touchback. There hasn't. And nowadays, kickers and training and specialists, they've gotten so good that a lot of these guys can just bomb it repeatedly. But yet still sometimes, and it's not everywhere, but still sometimes, and if your team does this, they'll try and coffin corner kick to, instead of giving the offense the ball at the 25, so they want to give it to him at the 20. And look, I understand the numbers and how it goes down the further backed up you get, but is it really worth that risk? Is it really worth them starting on the 17 as opposed to the 25? Especially with the talented returners in today's game. And when you have a guy that is kicking off touchbacks at a high clip, that kickoff coverage team doesn't get a ton of reps, not just fitting in live speed with a return, but tackling against a returner. Therefore, you are more susceptible to give up a big return. It's called getting too cute. It doesn't make sense, and it needs to stop. And for the one time that you do get them backed up inside where it normally would be in a touchback, congrats. But if you look in the long term, in the long run, you study the analytics, it's not worth it. It's just not worth it. And you're able to save reps from guys having to cover kicks because a lot of top-level teams put some of their best players and, yes, starters on the kickoff team. They still do. Look at Alabama. Look at Clemson. Look at Ohio State. Look at Georgia. We can go down the list. It's a great way to steal a breather. Not that you can take it off or assume that it's going to be a touchback. If you're on the kickoff coverage team, you can't assume it's going to be a touchback. But these are human beings. Like, oh, here comes Daniel Carlson. Here comes Anders Carlson. They're going to smash this ball. Still have to cover, still have to fit. But when you try and get cute, you open yourself up. And when you open yourself up, there's always that risk. So that's just kind of a pet peeve of mine. If I got a guy that could bang it out of the end zone every time, we're going to let him bang it. That's what we're going to do. because it's just smart and it's the way that it works. The second thing, and this is all circumstantial, this comes down another form of roster management, game time decision, gameplay decision. The roster dictates who you can put back there at returner. Now you're on the returning side. Tweeted out earlier and got a lot of traction, got some interesting opinion that Tank Bigsby should not return kicks for Auburn. He shouldn't. He shouldn't. Not saying Tank Bigsby couldn't be one of the best, if not the best kick returner in the country. We saw him run one back against Ole Miss and had a phantom holding call. But when you watch that guy and you understand the worth of that guy to the team with an offensive line that you have a good idea is going to struggle, that doesn't have the best personnel, with a wide receiver group that has talented personnel but has no experience, they're still looking in the portal to get a guy. I think they got a chance to get one here soon. But that situation is a lot different than being able to put Jalen Waddle back there when you have a roster full of dogs, full of studs. Auburn's roster and Alabama's roster is totally different. And opening up Tank Bigsby to not only take those hits, but then let's say he does get a 30, 35-yard return. That's great, but he's got to go sit 2 plays. Now your best offensive player has to sit out the first couple plays on your offensive drive. Now you're in 3rd and 7. So it's not worth it. If he gets hurt, it's not worth it. You never plan on anybody getting hurt. You don't play to not get injured. But when Jalen Waddle got hurt, it wasn't the most devastating thing for Alabama of all time. They still had one of the most prolific offenses in the history of college football. But if Tank Bigsby goes down, who's Auburn going to put out there? They can't go to the well, right? Brian Harsin hadn't been able to build and hadn't had the time to build what Nick Saban's built on that roster. It's just not worth the risk. And there's other guys on the team that can return kicks. And like I mentioned earlier, nowadays, a lot of balls are touchbacks. Guys are being told, hey, you got to take one step in the end zone, just fair catch it. Or hold your arms out, referee's going to blow it dead. So while you always want your best players to touch the ball, it's just not worth the risk. And I had somebody say, oh, well, is a touchdown on a kickoff return not worth as much as a rushing touchdown or a passing touchdown? It is. But let me give you a hint. You've got an opportunity to score a lot more rushing and passing touchdowns than you do kick return touchdowns. 1.17% of kickoff returns go for a touchdown. You would much rather give Tank Bigsby 15 to 20 carries a game and let him take those hits and those opportunities than to hope that he can just start running kicks back. Because typically, if you're having to return kicks, you're giving up points. Therefore, you need to score points. Therefore, you need your best offensive player on the field during the offensive formation, possession, play action, whatever, being able to catch the ball in the backfield. He is a threat. But you cannot overuse him, and it is just not wise to put him in that situation. So when you are making decisions on returners, it's not one blanket rule. The roster dictates what the roster dictates, and it's always circumstantial. And good special teams coordinators, good coaches, they'll tell you that, and it makes sense. All right, excited to get to Brad Nessler. Hope you guys win the water cooler. Stick with us. All right, everybody, as promised, getting to the interview portion of today's show. And really excited to bring on a guy, as I hinted, that if you know college sports, SEC sports, college basketball, college football, you know who this guy is. He's a CBS Sports SEC play-by-play broadcaster for college basketball, college football, the great Brad Nessler. Brad, I really appreciate you taking some time, man.
Great to be with you today. How you doing?
Man, I'm doing great. Excited about the upcoming season. And, there's a bunch of storylines as we kind of moved toward SEC Media Days, which we know is a big jumping off point toward the season, Labor Day being just around the corner. And we have some new hires in the league. And before we get into, forecasting kind of in your opinion, how you think some things are going to go, maybe a dark horse here and there. What did you think about the new hires in the league, starting with Brian Harsin and Auburn?
Well, I think that's a good hire. I think it's going to be tough, though, for a while to get the bearings of what, Southern football's about. He's a great football mind. He's done an awesome job where he was. I just think when you come in a new league, I don't care how talented you are or, how good your assistant coaches are, you got to kind of learn the lay of the land a little bit. And this is a different land, man, the SEC. I mean, other people would say it's just as bad in the Big Ten or whatever. But I think by the time you get down here, get to know the coaches in this part of the country, the high school coaches, and from a recruiting standpoint, I think it's tough. Now, talented as a football coach, yes. Learning curve, I think for sure, and I think that's with anybody when you go into a different league. Doesn't matter how talented you are or where you came from or how successful you were. I just think it takes a while kind of to get your roots down, to where you can really dig in and know what you're going to be about in a couple of years. I think it's going to be, down the line, it's going to look really good. At least I think the fans are hoping that. Anyway.
Yeah, they for sure are. And, Brad, you make a great point. It's always tough going into a new league. But not only going into the SEC, which we know has been the most dominant conference in college football for a while, but the SEC West, when you look at it right now with what Jimbo's doing at A&M, with what Sam Pittman's doing at Arkansas, you go down the list, the Mississippi schools with Kiffin and Leach. Is it the hardest time right now that there's ever been in the SEC West, with Alabama even dominating the way they have, but with the parity as we see, it's only getting better and better? Yeah,
I'd say you're right for sure. It's going to be different. I think this year, Kellen Mond being gone, Jimbo's got a spot to fill, and I'm not 100% sure they know who's going to fill that spot yet. That's the biggest question mark. But the fact that they've come to that point, and I think our programming people think that too, because we're going to have a night game at A&M with Alabama. So that's what we think of that matchup. And, with the other coaches, the influx last year, like you said, Lane coming in, I think has made a big difference, or it's going to make a big difference just because of kind of the way almost football, is played now. And Alabama started doing this years ago, but it was because of Lane's influence. They opened things up and it wasn't a ground oriented thing anymore. It was, throw it as much as you can throw it, and RPOs all over the place. Leach is a little different style. It worked. It worked the first game last year that we did, Mississippi State, and they lit it up, threw for over 600 yards. And then, people kind of got onto his game a little bit. But just the fact that the quality of coaching all over the SEC, but the fact that it's jumped up so far in the West, it's going to make it tougher on Auburn. And Alabama still the front runner. I mean, they're still the horse to catch, and I don't see that being any different this year, really.
No, the smart money's on Bama. It's been on Bama, even though we know what they had to replace. But Nick Saban, the greatest recruiter of all time, is able to fit guys in there and develop it and get them ready. Do you see, and I want to stick in the West for a second here, Brad, but do you see a team in the West, maybe an Ole Miss, that not necessarily can win the West this year, but maybe has been in that bottom tier that could make a jump and really take strides, toward relevancy and stick around ability, I guess, as you could call it down the road? I
think it would be them, to be honest with you. I think the fact that they scared the pants off Alabama in that game last year, but they just didn't have enough defense. If they ever get their defense to be half as good as what their offense is capable of being, I think they're the team that could probably make the biggest move. Now, I don't go over all the schedules and stuff, and I kind of look at it. I don't worry about it.
Well, everybody, they're all hard. The schedules are all tough in that league, brother.
Yeah, I know they are. You look at every week and you go, okay, well, they should win that one. They should win that one, and you can go down the list. Arkansas made a nice push last year. I just don't know if they can come up to that level again. I think their defense, their linebackers are as good as anybody in the league. They had the offense going pretty well last year. If they can take that up a notch, they can probably make a move. I would say probably Ole Miss if I was going to say somebody in the West to make a move. A&M is the closest right now, but like I said, they got a big spot to fill a quarterback.
Do you think, and again, this is all just personal opinion, but you've been in the game and seen the inner workings for a while. Does Lane Kiffin at Ole Miss, do you think that's something that we may see long term, or is this a stepping stone for Lane? Not going to Tennessee, I know that for sure, but maybe taking a Florida or somewhere else. But I do like the Lane and Ole Miss fit. It works. I mean, on social media, he's a pioneer right now with the way he approaches.
Yeah, what he did on Father's Day with Nick and Kirby with Kirby the baby, the whole thing. That kind of stuff for us and for you guys is hilarious. Yeah, and more of that. The more of that, the better, because between he and Leach last year, when you do their games, it was just a whole different feel of things and a whole different dynamic of coaching interviews. Now, we were Zooming, so it wasn't quite as cool as it would have been if we would have been sitting there talking to him in person. But just kind of the flair that he brings. I think of the Grove as being like the coolest place ever to party if you had a chance to party.
Yeah, Ole Miss has never lost a party. They may lose a couple games, but they've never lost a party.
Never. Never lost a party. I used that line a couple times when I did an open from the Grove one time, and I was standing on a platform, and I was afraid I was going to fall off the platform because everybody behind me was so quiet. And I want him to be noisy. And I turned around and I almost fell off the platform. I was like, I thought you guys were going to make some noise while I'm out here. And then they went crazy. And then they wanted me to stick around. I said, sorry, I got work to do for the next 4 hours.
Yeah.
But, I think it's a cool fit. I agree with you that he just kind of fits that whole atmosphere.
Yeah. Isn't it interesting, too? And I don't mean to, relish on this point. And I think it's, good for the game mostly. But can you imagine 15, 20 years ago, imagining a head coach in the SEC putting out a graphic of another head coach as a baby and another head coach's arm? I mean, just thinking about that now as being, not only acceptable, but hilarious and kind of the new wave. It's so different than kind of, the your father's coaching staff.
Even when Jimbo was talking to whatever group he was talking to and said, that this year was going to be the year that he beats Nick,
beats his ass, right? That's what he said, wasn't it?
Beat his ass. And then when they asked Nick about it, he doesn't even smile. And he said, golf, there's enough camaraderie in the league. And then there's enough competition in the league. And there's enough that you're not sure if those guys like each other or not in the league, that it makes it pretty fun every week.
Yeah, no, and I think it's only going to get more interesting as social media becomes so ingrained with recruiting, and we've seen how that has kind of taken shape over the past couple years. But Brad, before I get to the East and want to preview that a little bit, the transfer portal's been crazy, and it's kind of again going against the grain and your father's conference, to where if you transferred, it was almost looked down upon and are something that, now you're going to have to sacrifice, and really had a lot of people ask a lot of questions about you maybe off the field or as a fit. Do you worry about just the not only the frequency, but the ability to be able to transfer so easy and it be kind of just accepted in general?
It's going to change everything a lot, and it already has. But, up until, even if it was 3 years ago, if we saw a guy transfer, let's say Joe Burrow, let's take Joe Burrow, the consensus was, well, he couldn't win the Ohio State job.
Yep.
So he went to LSU, and then he had a pretty good year. and then he won the Heisman Trophy.
Yeah, he did a good year.
But, yeah, he had a very good year. But when that happened, and that was 3-4 years ago, Gary and I would sit there and go, he couldn't win the job at Ohio State. How's he going to win the job at LSU? And then we looked at the LSU quarterback situation. So, yeah, I think he can win the job at LSU. And so, we were kind of looking at, like you were talking about, like, okay, there was this perception of transfers that they were quitting on their first school, and that just changed so dramatically. And I kept saying, well, who cares? But I never got the having to sit out a year. I just thought, okay, that's weird. It was always meant as basically a punishment. And especially in conference, man, if you did that, it was the worst thing in the world. You went from Alabama to Auburn or something like that, or Florida to Auburn, like Cam did, whatever. It was looked down upon. And now it's looked at as an opportunity. Now, like this McCaffrey kid that's bounced all over just in the summer and spring, people look at that a little bit weird. I think his offensive coordinator at Rice or whatever was with him someplace else, whatever. But when you bounce around to 4 different schools, after a while you go, okay, do you want to compete, or you want to be a teammate, or you want to win the job, or are you afraid you can't win the job? Yeah. So there's all kinds of ways to look at it, I guess.
Yeah.
But right now, the movement and the fact that guys are moving in a matter of 2 months and then starting where they're going, great for them. Because coaches can go anytime, and it's always been that way. Mm-hmm. They can just say sayonara and I'm going to a better gig, and the players couldn't. So I think it's great for the kids. I think it's going to cause a mess at times. We're going to look at people and go, where did that guy come from? You almost can't look at a preseason roster right now and know exactly what you're going to see when August rolls around. That's how weird it is.
Yeah, and we have this July 1st deadline for eligibility, so it's going to be interesting to see it down the stretch, especially as we're recording this on June 29th. And you talk about Dylan McCaffrey. I don't know who's ran more routes, Dylan McCaffrey to go in different schools or Ed McCaffrey for the Broncos. I guess we're going to have to just look at that down the road and make a decision there. But speaking about opportunity,
can I use that?
Hey, Brad, you can use that, brother, anytime. I would be honored.
Got it.
I would be honored. But speaking about opportunities and routes, if you're trying to put your daughter, son, doesn't matter, anybody, or if you're the athlete yourself and you're trying to get looked at by recruiters, you need to download the Dynasty U app today. It's in the Google Play Store, anywhere you get your apps. It's like the LinkedIn for recruiting. It's concise. No more emails to coaches, the 10,000 ones they're not going to look at and pawn off to some guy in the recruiting department and put him in a trash can and burn them. They'll actually look at this. It's concise. It's easy. DFOs love it. Recruiting coordinators love it. Like I said, it's a LinkedIn for recruiting, your social media, your GPA, your highlights. It doesn't guarantee you a scholarship, but the big eye in the sky doesn't lie, and that GPA doesn't lie either. And they're able to see both those really quickly, get through it, and hopefully return your call. That's the Dynasty U app. Download that today. Anywhere you get your apps, Google Play Store as well. It's fantastic. It's free for right now, so don't miss out on that opportunity. We're here with SEC Sports play-by-play broadcaster for college football, college basketball. Hell, he could call Quidditch if he had to. Mr. Brad Nessler from CBS Sports, excited to be talking with Brad and some SEC. And, as we segue into the second half of this interview, looking at the East, obviously, and I feel like I say this on every show, Georgia, to me, is the hands-down favorite. You look at the roster. I played in David Pollock's golf tournament the other day and looked at Jordan Davis, and he's one of the biggest human beings I've ever seen. I don't know how you block that guy, but now that they have JT Daniels, do you think this is the best roster collectively, and not just because of JT? And I know that they're a little green up front, but you look at Georgia's roster, and, man, this feels like Kirby's best shot. Does it not, Brad?
I think this is Kirby's best shot, and everybody that's a Georgia fan thinks that. That's the problem he's going to have to coach with.
It's a double-edged sword.
It is because, so many of the, sports talk stations around here and everything have said, this is it or it's not going to happen. Now, it's bad enough when you go in and you start the season off with Alabama last year, and that didn't work out so well. And the fact that, he can't beat Alabama and he can't get over that hump. And this year their schedule is set up beautifully for them. I mean, I could coach the road games they have, I think, actually. So don't tell him I said that. Kirby doesn't like when I either give him credit or don't give him credit. But this is it. It is helped by the fact that he's got a quarterback that's got some experience. It's just a month worth that JT had last year, but man, that month was spectacular. And the questions are still asked around here all the time. What if he would have played 2 weeks earlier? What if? And then you have to go through that whole, was he cleared to play? Was he healthy enough? That whole deal. And that got old last year. Trust me, doing as many Georgia games as I did and having to listen to my friends in Georgia about it. This roster is pretty darn good. Last year, I thought Florida had a chance, not only a chance, but I thought they could overtake Georgia, and they did. I didn't expect Kyle Trask to have that kind of year. Yeah. Kyle Pitts had that kind of year. I just thought they were good enough, and that Georgia was that unsettled at the most important spot, and that's quarterback. I mean, you got a quarterback, and you got a chance. And, probably Ole Miss and Georgia have the two best quarterbacks coming back. So that being said, game one right out of the blocks, if they beat Clemson, they can run the table, I think, get to the SEC championship. But their home schedule's horrible. I wouldn't want to have tickets, and their road schedule's easy, I think. Yeah. Like you said, there's never a week when it's really easy, but they're set up pretty well. Yeah. There's some spots. I think when they lost George Pickens, everybody panicked, but I think they're deeper at wide receiver than they've ever been. And so I don't know that he would have made that big a difference. And, they got a freshman coming in that looks like a clone of him that was great in the spring game. And, Kyrus Jackson and all the other guys they have coming back. They did as well in the portal as anybody, I think. Yeah. I think they got 3 starters, maybe 4 starters out of the portal, 2 in the secondary, maybe 3. Arik Gilbert at tight end. I mean, here's a 5-star guy, and the tight end they had is pretty good. Their running backs are strong. I mean, you look at them on paper, they should beat everybody, but we'll see.
Yeah, and too, you look at them compared to kind of everybody in the East with what Florida lost. And I don't mean any disrespect to Kentucky. I got Kentucky finishing second in the East. I love what Eli's doing at Missouri. I think Basilak, I have him as my 3rd best quarterback in the SEC. That's how much I think about him. I love his mentality and the way he plays the game. But I'm with you, Brad. I think if they beat Clemson week 1, and again, you got to play every game. To me, they're definitely in the playoff. Because even if you run the table, you go to the SEC championship and you lose to an Alabama or somebody, they're still going to make the top 4. That's a huge game. And when you look at some of these early games, I want to throw a couple at you, Brad, and then I want to ask you about the expanded playoff. It looks like we're going there in 2023 and your thoughts on that, and then I'll let you run. But when you look at Georgia Clemson, you look at Alabama Miami, you look at Auburn Penn State week 3. Do you think Georgia Clemson's going to be the best game out of those 3? I just don't see Miami being able to stop Alabama offensively.
Yeah, no, I think Georgia Clemson's the best game of the weekend. There's some really good ones. That is as good as a kickoff weekend game. I did a lot of those over the years. I don't know. I'm sure there was some really good ones.
It's up there, man. It's up there.
Yeah. I mean, when you got 2 top 5s right out of the blocks, that's about as good as you can get, and I did some of those where I had a number 1 against maybe a number 8 or something like that, and you go, well, it's a pretty good game. And then it's lopsided or, what you expect to happen happens. But that's as good a one as I can remember. And I know I'll be glued to watching whether it's Chris and Kirk or if it's Todd and Sean or whoever's doing that game. I'll be really interested, because what follows that for me is I don't have many Georgia games, I don't think, because I said their home schedule not great. We know they have them against Florida, and then down the line we'll kind of see how everything trails out. But I might only have Georgia once before the SEC title game, so I got to watch them as often as I can.
Hey, no problem. And I'd love to have you on here, and we'll talk about them and get you ready for them when you cover them. But Brad, that brings me to a question. And again, I don't really script this. I kind of do it off the top of the head, and I find this question fascinating. And when a guy that's as well traveled in you and has accomplished as much in the broadcasting game as you have, when you're not broadcasting, like let's say on a Saturday or you're done, I know there's a lot of stuff in post-production and that you have to do and are be involved in, but do you watch other guys call games? And when you do, are you watching like the game in one ear and then watching them in the other ear? And like most of the time when we're, as a guy that coached for 9 years, if I'm like, oh man, he busted that route. Are you like looking at some of these other guys and like, oh man, he blew that commentary point right there. Like that's horrible by him.
Yeah, you do that even when you're trying not to do it. I mean, like at the end of our game, if we have an afternoon game and we're like in Tuscaloosa or something and we're on the bus coming back to Atlanta, we've got 2 games going, we got TVs going and all kinds of stuff going on. We're eating, we're having a drink, whatever we're doing. So you're kind of watching the game, and then you got usually the sound on one, and yeah, I guess everybody picks on everybody else. But, I'm usually pretty good about it. Like if somebody makes a great call, I usually text them and go, hey bro, good call.
Nice.
Because it's easy to pick on somebody, and everybody makes mistakes every week. And people say to me, do you go back and watch your games? And I really don't. Almost everybody else on our crew does, producer, director, Gary, Jamie, whatever. I usually don't watch because I know as soon as I make a mistake during a game or I blew a call or I'd like to have that call back, I don't want to hear it again,
Yeah. Well, and you don't do that a lot, Brad. I'm not saying that because you're here, but there's a reason you've been in this business for as long as you have.
We always go back to, I think it was 92. Florida State's playing Virginia. Florida State had never lost an ACC game. They're playing at Scott Field in Charlottesville. Gary and I are doing the game. That was our first marriage when we were together for 8 years before we got divorced, and then we got remarried. 5 years.
Look, it's 2021. Who knows? It's all's fair in love and war.
Yeah. So that was our first time working together at ESPN, and it comes down to the last play of the game, and Bobby Bowden has Warwick Dunn in a Wildcat, which nobody had ever really seen before than single wing football back in the day. And I go, Warwick Dunn's in the backfield, and they snap it to him. It's the last play of the game. I call a touchdown. They said he fumbled into the end zone. Warwick and I are friends to this day. He said, had we had replay or your camera guys would have been around the goal line, I would have been in before I fumbled. So that's the one call I always want back, and I never can get it back. And I get reminded about it on the anniversary of that game. Warwick and I talk about it. So, everybody has a play or a whole game they'd like to have back. Sometimes I have a whole game and I go, where was my head? And then sometimes I think, man, I think we crushed that one today. So watching other guys is fun. And there's, guys that I really enjoy listening to a lot. Kevin Burkhardt at Fox, Adam Amin at Fox. I shouldn't be throwing Fox guys out. I should be throwing my guys out.
Hey, we can edit it out if you want to, Brad.
Later. No, I don't care. No, I'm just talking about some guys that,
That's
you know, I keep up with, and they keep up with me. And I think a lot of them are several years younger than me. So over the years, they probably asked me for advice. And now I'm looking at them going, hey, great call, man, and all that kind of stuff. So I listen a little bit, but mostly I try to watch, you know, and I usually, if I'm watching tape, I don't listen to the broadcast. But if I'm watching a game at home, I have the sound up.
Does replay like do from a commentary standpoint? You bring up the work done story. Is replay like a good thing for commentators so they can go back and say, hey, here we're looking at it again? Or are they kind of like, damn, like I wish it wasn't replay. I wish that one kind of we could have let that one die.
Yeah. There's sometimes, usually with injuries, I can't stand that because sometimes we had to call 2 off last year. I'd told Craig, our producer, don't show that again. Trust me.
No,
because I saw kind of, you know, there's so much stuff going on in the truck and they kind of see somebody got hurt and they don't really know what happened. And I'm going, don't show that again.
I think about, you know, Willis
like
McGahee and the Natty and all that stuff.
Whatever. And, you know, so it's like, let's not do that again. But no, I like replay a lot. I just wish they were a little more quick about it sometimes. And they've tried to curb that and they've done a pretty good job of it. And then, you know, when you call a play and you call it just like you saw it, and then it comes back and replay confirms you were right, then you're yes,
there we go. It's like you're looking at the replay like, listen, are we right? There we go, baby. No, that's great. No, I appreciate that, Brad. Kind of a look behind the camera of behind the camera, if that makes sense. But my last question for you, we're here with the great Brad Nessler. This is great stuff. Excited to get you back on as we get closer to football season. You guys get gearing up, like you said, you and Gary ready to take on the world in there for the booth. But the playoff, it's been a huge thing. I couldn't let you go without asking you about it. Expanding it to 12. I thought 8 was a great number. I had a whole diatribe on that. You can find on YouTube for our audience out there. I'm sure, you know, our audience knows about it already. But, you know, I'm not in love with the number of 12. You know, I like that we expanded, but I really don't like the 4 byes. I think in college football, giving somebody a bye at that point in time is such a huge advantage. I mean, we're talking about Vanderbilt not having to pitch a guy for one game and getting, you know, basically a bye into the Natty in the College World Series. In football, it's times 1,000. It does so many things for you. What is your overall thoughts on the recommendation? It looks like that's where we're going in 2023.
Well, you know, I think it was bound to happen. You know, I've been asked this since way back in the BCS before we had the playoff situation, and I did 2 or 3 BCS national championships, and I didn't think that was enough teams. You know, that was kind of polls and computers, and that never made sense to me. And then, you know, we would ask Bill Hancock, well, is this ever going to change? No, we got the greatest setup in the world here. Then it became the playoff. And we said, well, we thought you said the BCS was the greatest setup in the world. No, this is perfect. This is perfect. We got a playoff. Okay, we finally have a playoff. And we always wondered why it wasn't more than 4 to start with, sort of. That was our question. That was kind of always asked when I was still at ESPN. And they were, well, this is enough. And then over the years, as time passed, it became, do you think it's going to expand? And I said, it's going to expand, but I don't know if it'll expand in my broadcast lifetime. And now I know it's going to happen. I'm not going to be part of it probably, but that's neither here nor there. I'm not sure what I'd think about it. I don't think I've thought enough about it. You know, I've looked at kind of their concepts of, you know, the division champion, the conference champions, and then, you know, Notre Dame is in the mix, and then from the group of 5 and all that stuff. I wish it could just be, if it's going to be 12, just take the 12 best teams. I don't care what conference they play and just let them play. But then you're right back to having people and computers or whatever decide, or polls decide who the best teams are. I think if you win the conference championship, you should be in there. You know, other than that, I'm not sure about 8 or 12 or whatever the case might be. I do like the fact that the first round games are going to be, it sounds like they're going to be on campus sites.
Yes, I'm with you on that's going to be awesome. I'm super excited about that.
If you deserved to be in that upper echelon, you deserve to play at home. Now, how they're going to incorporate the bowls, I don't know, but you know, it's going to be 39 bowl games will be unhappy, and the other ones will be really happy, I guess. I don't know. There's too many bowl games to start with. That's a whole other deal. I don't know. I have to put more thought into it. I'm glad it's expanding. I knew it would. I don't know when it will. I know they're trying to make everybody happy, and they're going to have to renegotiate with ESPN if they want to change it all before, 25 or whatever. If it's 23, then there's a whole bunch of money numbers in there that's way above my pay scale. How they're going to do it all. I'm quite frankly confused, but I kind of get it. but I'm not sure if I like any of it yet.
Yeah, well, they're going to have to get Ben Affleck from the accountant to figure out how to get it done by 2023, in my opinion, with all the restructuring deals. But Brad, it was fantastic to have you on here. I got so much respect for you, man, and what you've done and what you guys are doing. Tell everybody so do y'all have the first game that you and Gary are calling? Do you have that mapped out already?
Yeah, I think so. Hold on.
Yeah.
Alabama and Florida at Gainesville. There's a possibility we might do Air Force and Navy the week before that because it's the 20th anniversary of 9/11, and I know CBS is doing that game. I don't know if Gary and I are doing that game. Possibility, and I would be honored to do that because I love Army Navy, and that particular weekend, I know exactly where I was. When all that happened 20 years ago, and I can't believe that's 20 years ago. But possibility we'll do that. But otherwise, our first SEC game is in Gainesville, rematch of the SEC title game.
Woo! Could be the goodbye anthem for old Todd Grantham if he don't get that defense ready by the time Alabama comes rolling to town. But no,
here we go.
Hey, listen, you keep that one too. I'm on fire. Some days are better than others. You're talking about commentating. Some days you got it, some days you don't. No, man, I really appreciate it. Great stuff, Brad. And I know everybody can catch your content on CBS Sports and would love to do this again if you got some time.
You got it, pal. Great being with you.
Yes, sir. Thank you so much. Thank you all for being with us as well. Make sure you subscribe. YouTube, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, one of the fastest growing sports shows in the country. And you know why we're helping you win the water cooler. Also, go to the jboyshow.com. Grab some of that merchandise. You can look good as me in this black one with the gray hoodies, all that stuff. They're selling like hotcakes, so check them out. We appreciate you. It's been another edition of the Jboy Show with the great Brad Nessler. And we're gone.
The Jboy Show is produced by David Cohn, Technical Director Dave Hammock, Creative Director David Culbertson, Audio Engineer Feyzan Shareef, Production Assistants Blaine Crain and Kyle Orr, Executive Producers Jake Crain, Vince Thompson, Steve Chamberlain, and David Cohn. Please subscribe to our YouTube channel and visit our website, thejboyshow.com, for updates regarding our newest apparel and merch designs. Win the water cooler with the Jboy Show.